Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another classic horror review. Today I'm taking a look at the 1983 classic John Carpenter film, Christine. The film obviously is directed by John Carpenter, it's based on the Stephen King book and stars Keith Gordon, John Stockwell, Alexandra Paul, Robert Proske and Harry Dean Stanton. Now the film follows Keith Gordon's character Arnie, who I think it's fair to say at the beginning of the film is a little bit of a loser. He gets bullied at school. His best friend, however, is one of like the jocks on the football team who kind of tries to look after him. He's kind of going nowhere in life, and then this one particular day, he discovers a broken down old 58 car that he discovers is called Christine, and he falls in love with it immediately, even though it's broken down to hell. Takes it, starts doing it up, and then lo and behold, this car is actually evil. And it starts to slowly manipulate and possess him, turning him against everybody that he cares about, and determined to take out anybody that mishandles him or her. Right, what are my thoughts on Christine? Well, I just really loved revisiting this one. I haven't seen this film for a long time. This was one of those John Carpenter films that probably when I was younger, I didn't really connect with so much. He's done so many fabulous films, John Carpenter, and this was kind of one I overlooked, watched and kind of dismissed, if you like, and overlooked it for a while, and then came to really appreciate it later on. So I really do enjoy this film. I think it's got a lot going for it. It's got the classic John Carpenter DNA all over it sort of thing. It's got the classic John Carpenter soundtrack. You know, it's got so much going for it. It's filmed brilliantly. And it's got an enthralling story if you can kind of obviously put your believability factor to one side. We're talking about a killer car here or a possessed car. And that's a lot to take in. And that's probably part of the reason that I struggled with it when I was younger. But when you actually watch it and just suspend your disbelief, it's a really brilliant film with some fantastic moments in it. It has its flaws. Of course it has its flaws. I think the biggest flaw for me is it kind of jumps too quickly. I think we could have done with another 10 or 15 minutes seeing the transition in Arnie from nerd to chick magnet, if you like. I mean, he goes from literally 2 minutes ago, he is still this nerdy guy who is delighted that he's got Christine, and Christine is still being a long way from being fixed up sort of thing. And then the next scene, she's fully refitted and he is dating the hottest chick in school. And I really, that's for me the weakest part of the film, that transition. For me, we didn't really see happen particularly. But that's one of my very few criticisms of this film. And I suspect, it was done for pacing, I'm presuming. But I think the film could have benefited from a little bit more fleshing out of that process. I think Keith Gordon is fantastic here as Arnie. You see his character arc go from this very loyal and nerdy, if you like, character at the beginning to transition to, someone that is, quite evil by the end, really. You know what I mean? Totally and utterly in love with the car. And I think he really gets that across on screen. And when I've read up on this, he's sort of said in a few interviews and stuff and featurettes and what have you that he kind of imagined Christine as a woman. So every time he touched Christine, he kind of imagined what part of the woman he was touching. So that's kind of how he tried to get that across on screen, that it was a real person to him. But he really did translate that to the audience, that he was in love with the car and vice versa. The sequences of the car, communicating with him through the radio and stuff like that, were impactful and very, very good. And then the whole thing that you get in the film where Christine can rebuild herself, I just thought was fabulous. And when you read up how they did that sort of thing, it was very, very cool practical effects that really worked for the film to show just this thing being able to mend itself, will itself back to its original kind of shape. Really, really good. The sequences where Christine is hunting down those that damaged her early in the film, the bullies from the school, I really liked that as well. I like the fact that you don't know if Arnie's driving sometimes, and sometimes you clearly do. So it's not as if he's not consenting to it or anything, but sometimes Christine just takes it on her own back to go and do it herself, which I really, really liked. And for me, the whole thing just kind of works. It's got that 70s feel to it, sort of thing. Even though it was filmed in 83, it's based in 78, 79, something like that. Which again, I thought that was the perfect setting for the film as well. And I don't know. I think this is one of those films that has aged actually very, very well. Because John Carpenter has done so many classics. Just so many, for me, just the absolute grand master when it comes to horror. So I do think sometimes this one gets overlooked a little bit, and I'll admit it, even by me. But I'm rewatching it for this review, and like I say, it's a good few years since I've seen it. I absolutely, thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cool. Done very, very well. It was done in a way because, from an outsider looking in, an evil possessed car that can drive itself and, all this kind of stuff and rebuild itself. It sounds ridiculous. But John Carpenter being John Carpenter makes you believe it and makes you buy into it, and you are totally on board with it. And that is a gift, to take a concept so bonkers and mad and turn it into a film and it translates very, very well. So I think this is one of those Stephen King adaptations that works for me. Apparently this Stephen King was so hot at the time in regards to author and people wanting to adapt his books and stuff, that this went into production before the book was even published. So that shows you just how popular. He still is. People still go mad for Stephen King books and adaptations. I think he is the most prolific and talented horror writer as well. So it's a perfect combination. You've got, the best horror writer and the best horror director, and they can make magic when you kind of are given the tools to do it. And yeah, I think this one worked really, really well. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on Christine in the comments. I think it's an absolute 80s horror classic. Great moments in it. And I hope they don't remake it, because this is one of those that you're kind of thinking, will they? Won't they? I hope they don't. We've seen what happens when people try to remake John Carpenter films. They never work, very, very rarely anyway. So yeah, let's just hope they don't do it. So thanks for watching, guys. Of course, I will be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.